The emergency sirens had never sounded in the Galactic Council chambers before. In 300 years of operation, the Great Station Terminus 7 had witnessed debates, celebrations, and even heated arguments between species. But never this. Never the bone-chilling wail that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. Zeloth of the Velkari stood at the center of the circular chamber, his forearms trembling slightly as he activated the holographic display. His insectoid face, usually so composed in its chitinous elegance, showed clear signs of stress. The antennae on his head drooped lower than any of the assembled representatives had ever seen. "Council members," he began, his voice translator rendering his clicks and whistles into something all species could understand. "We face a crisis unlike anything in recorded history." The chamber filled rapidly. Representatives from 47 species took their positions around the great circle. The Thornash arrived in their slow, crystalline way, each step ringing like a bell on the metal floor. The Marathi floated in their water-filled containment suits, their tentacles pressing against the transparent walls. The Krevtar, the Solmani, the Pesh, all of them came, all of them afraid. Seoyeon Park stood in the human observation gallery, her hands gripping the railing. She was young for a diplomatic assistant, barely 26, but she had earned her position through hard work and talent. Her role was simple: observe council proceedings and report back to Earth's diplomatic corps. Earth wasn't a full council member, just an associate with limited privileges. Today, she wished she was anywhere else. "Show them," said Krital, an elder of the Thornash. His crystalline body refracted the chamber lights into rainbow patterns. "Show them what we're facing." The holographic display shifted. Images appeared in the air above the council floor. Seoyeon felt her stomach turn. The first image showed a colony world. Beautiful, green, with 3 moons hanging in a purple sky. The second image showed the same world 2 weeks later. The city still stood, but something was wrong. The streets were filled with people, but none of them moved. They simply stood there, swaying slightly, their eyes empty. "This is the colony of Reshitar Prime," Zeloth explained. "Population 4 million. 3 weeks ago, they reported an unknown infection spreading through their cities. 2 weeks ago, all communication ceased. When we sent a rescue team, they found this." The image zoomed in on a single victim, a Krevtar male standing in the middle of a street. His mouth hung open. His eyes stared at nothing. Medical readouts appeared beside him, showing that his body was healthy, heart beating, lungs breathing, all organs functioning. But the brain scan showed almost no higher activity. He was alive, but the person he had been was gone. "The silence," whispered Velmon, a Marathi council member. "That's what the outer colonies are calling it. The disease that steals your mind." Zeloth nodded grimly. 53 colonies have reported infections. The pattern is always the same. It begins with a few cases. Within hours, it spreads to everyone on the planet. No cure has been found. No treatment works. Once infected, victims lose all higher brain function within 6 hours. "How does it spread?" asked a Pesh representative, her fur standing on end with fear. "We don't know," Krital replied, his voice like wind chimes. "It seems to require no physical contact. Some colonies were infected despite having no outside visitors for months." Seoyeon leaned forward, watching the debate unfold below. Her mind raced. She had heard rumors of a plague in the Outer Rim, but nothing like this. Nothing so horrifying. "Our scientists have discovered something," Zeloth continued. He changed the holographic display. Now it showed strange machines, each about the size of a human hand. They looked organic and mechanical at the same time, with tendrils that writhed like living things and metal components that gleamed under bright light. "We call them harvesters. They appear wherever the silence spreads. We believe they carry the infection somehow. They're machines, but they seem almost alive. They adapt to our attempts to destroy them. They learn." The chamber erupted into frightened chatter. Representatives spoke over each other, demanding answers, proposing solutions, or simply expressing their fear. Then Velmon spoke again, and his words cut through the noise like a blade. "There's more, isn't there? You wouldn't have called an emergency session just for this. Something else has happened." Zeloth's antennae drooped even lower. "Yes, something else." He paused, as if gathering courage. "We've detected a fleet entering council space, a human fleet." The chamber went silent. Seo Yan's heart stopped. She gripped the railing harder, her knuckles turning white. Humans? Here? 17 ships, Zeloth continued. "Moving at speeds our sensors can barely track. They've ignored all our hails. All our attempts at communication have been met with silence. Long-range analysis suggests they're military vessels, heavily armed." "Where are they headed?" asked Krytal, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Here, directly toward Terminus 7. The chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives shouted, some demanding immediate evacuation, others calling for military response. The Krevtar representative began roaring about humanity's aggression. The Pesh delegate curled into a defensive ball. Seo Yan felt dizzy. Earth hadn't authorized any military action. She would have been notified. Unless Earth's government had decided to act without telling their diplomatic observers. But why? What possible reason could there be? "Order!" Zeloth's voice boomed through the translator. "We must maintain order!" Slowly, the chaos subsided. Representatives returned to their positions, though many looked ready to flee at any moment. "We must consider all possibilities," said Velmon carefully. "Could the humans have created the silence? As a weapon?" "Impossible!" Seoyon shouted before she could stop herself. All eyes turned to the observation gallery. She felt heat rise to her face, but continued. "Earth lost contact with one of our colonies 3 months ago, New Sol. We've been trying to find out what happened. We would never create something like this." "And yet," said the Krevtar representative, his voice a low growl, "humans come, armed, silent, heading directly for us. What are we to think?" Seo Yan had no answer. She didn't understand it either. Zeloth raised one of his forearms. "We have 48 hours before the human fleet arrives. I propose we prepare our defense fleet while continuing evacuation procedures. We hope for peace, but prepare for the worst." "What about the silence?" asked a small delegate from a species Seo Yan didn't recognize. "Even if we survive the humans, the plague will still spread." "One crisis at a time," Zeloth replied. "First, we deal with the immediate threat." The vote was called. The council agreed almost unanimously. Only 3 representatives voted against military preparation, arguing that it might provoke the humans. Seo Yan noticed that all 3 were from species that had relatively friendly relations with Earth. As the council session ended and representatives began leaving the chamber, Seo Yan rushed to her communication station. She had to contact Earth, had to find out what was happening. She opened secure channels and sent priority messages. All came back with the same automated response. "Communication channels currently unavailable. Please try again later." That was wrong. Very wrong. Earth's diplomatic channels were always open. Always. "Miss Park?" Seo Yan turned to find Zeloth standing behind her. Up close, the Velkari was even more imposing, nearly 7 feet tall with his 4 arms and powerful build. "Council Leader," she said, bowing slightly, "I apologize for speaking out during the session. It was inappropriate." "No," Zeloth said gently. "It was passion. I understand. Your species is being accused of terrible things." "We didn't do this," Seo Yan insisted. "Whatever the silence is, Humans didn't create it. I want to believe you, Zeloth replied. But you must understand our position. Humanity has a reputation. Sioyan knew exactly what he meant. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humanity's reputation. Humans came from Earth, which the galaxy had classified as a Class 12 death world. Most species evolved on gentle planets with stable climates and relatively safe ecosystems. Earth was different. Earth had megafauna predators, frequent natural disasters, diseases that evolved as fast as cures could be developed, and weather patterns that could kill the unprepared in minutes. Most species who discovered Earth assumed humans must be prisoners there, trapped by some ancient catastrophe. The Velkari had actually sent a rescue mission once, offering to relocate humanity to a safer world. Humans had politely declined, explaining that Earth was their home. That should have been the first warning. Then came the Krell War. The Krell Empire, aggressive and expansionist, had attacked human colonies without warning. They expected an easy victory. Humans were new to the galactic stage, their technology less advanced, their military small. The war lasted 3 months. In that time, humans had systematically dismantled the Krell military. They didn't just win battles. They destroyed the enemy's ability to wage war. They used tactics that horrified the galaxy: psychological warfare, guerrilla strikes deep in enemy territory, and something they called total war that meant nothing was off limits. The Krell homeworld fell without a shot being fired there. Humans had already destroyed every military asset the Krell possessed. The Krell had no choice but to surrender. After that, most species kept a careful distance from humanity. Humans traded, shared some technology, and maintained diplomatic relations. But nobody really trusted them. Nobody wanted to provoke them. I know what the galaxy thinks of us, Sioyan said quietly. But we're not monsters. We fight when we have to, yes. But we don't create plagues. We don't attack without reason. Then what reason brings 17 warships to my station? Zeloth asked. It wasn't accusatory. He genuinely wanted to understand. I don't know, Sioyan admitted. But I'm going to find out. After Zeloth left, Sioyan worked through the night. She searched through every communication that had passed between Earth and the Council in the past 6 months. There had to be something. Some clue. She found it at 3 in the morning, buried in a stack of routine diplomatic correspondence. It was a message from Earth, sent 21 days ago. The subject line read, Urgent, request for Council assistance regarding unknown pathogen. Sioyan's hands shook as she opened it. The message was from Earth's Ministry of Health and Safety. It described the loss of contact with New Sol Colony. It mentioned symptoms that matched the silence perfectly. It requested any information the Council might have about similar outbreaks. The message had been received by the Council's administrative department. It had been logged, filed, and forgotten, lost in the bureaucracy. It had never reached the Council floor. Nobody had ever responded to Earth. Oh no, Sioyan whispered. She immediately sent the message to Zeloth with a priority flag. Then she tried again to contact the human fleet. She used every frequency she knew. She tried common Earth languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, Korean. She sent text messages, audio messages, even old-fashioned radio signals. Nothing worked. Then at 4:17 a.m. station time, she received a response. It was brief, just 2 words in English. Stand down. Sioyan stared at the message. Stand down? Stand down from what? What did that mean? She sent back, Please explain. What are your intentions? No response came. At 6 a.m., the Council reconvened. Sioyan presented her findings about the buried message. Some Council members looked ashamed. Others angry that Earth had been ignored, but most focused on the 2-word response from the human fleet. Stand down, repeated the Krevtar representative. That's a military command, a threat, or a warning, suggested Krital. Perhaps they want us to move our defense fleet. Why? Demanded Velmon. What are they planning? Nobody had answers. The human fleet was now 24 hours away. Long-range sensors showed them maintaining their course and speed. They hadn't slowed down, hadn't deviated, hadn't communicated further. The Council's defense fleet took up positions around Terminus 7. 15 species had contributed ships. It was an impressive force, strong enough to give even human warships pause. SEO Yan hoped it wouldn't come to battle. She hoped desperately that there was some explanation, some misunderstanding that could be cleared up with conversation. But as the hours ticked down, as the human fleet grew closer and maintained its silence, hope became harder to hold on to. At hour 18, Zeloth addressed the Council again. We've prepared evacuation ships for all non-essential personnel. We hope it won't come to conflict, but we must be ready. At hour 12, the first civilian transports began leaving the station. At hour 6, the defense fleet armed all weapons systems. At hour 1, Seo Yan stood in the observation gallery again, watching the view screens that showed empty space. Somewhere out there, 17 human ships were approaching. Somewhere out there, people from her homeworld were about to arrive at this station. Were they coming to attack? To conquer? She couldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. But she also couldn't explain it. The last minutes ticked away in silence. The council chamber was nearly empty now, only essential personnel remaining. Zeloth stood at his position, all four arms clasped together in a gesture of prayer or meditation. Then alarms blared. "They're here," announced the sensor operator, a Pesh with trembling paws. "Human fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. Distance 50,000 kilometers. They're hailing us." "On screen," Zeloth commanded. The view screen flickered to life. A human face appeared. Male, middle-aged, with stern features and eyes that had seen combat. He wore a military uniform Seo Yan recognized as belonging to Earth's United Fleet. "I am Admiral Minjun Choi of the United Earth ship Indomitable," the man said. His voice was calm, controlled, but there was something beneath it, something hard and unyielding. "Council of Species. You will evacuate all stations within the Xerxes cluster immediately. You have 12 hours. We will not repeat this warning." The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted into chaos once again, but this time Seo Yan barely heard it. Her mind was racing, putting pieces together. The Xerxes cluster. That was where the silence had first appeared, where the harvesters had been most concentrated. The humans weren't here to attack the council. They were here for something else entirely, and whatever it was, they were willing to give orders to the entire Galactic Council to do it. The council chamber remained in chaos for nearly 10 minutes before Zeloth managed to restore order. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate compliance with the human ultimatum, others insisting they stand firm against what they saw as human aggression. Seo Yan barely noticed the commotion. She had pulled up everything she could find about the Xerxes cluster on her data tablet. 7 stations, 2 research facilities, mining operations, approximately 30,000 inhabitants from various species. "Why there?" she muttered to herself. "What's in the Xerxes cluster that humans would cross half the galaxy for?" "Perhaps we should ask them that question," came a voice beside her. She looked up to find Krital standing there. The old Thornash scholar moved quietly despite his crystalline body. Up close, Seo Yan could see tiny fractures in his structure, signs of his considerable age. "They're not answering our hails," Seo Yan said. "No, but they're answering yours," Krital replied. "You received a response earlier. Stand down," they said. "That means they know you're here. They know you're trying to communicate." 2 words isn't much of a conversation. It's more than they've given anyone else. Krital's voice held a gentle tone. "Tell me, young one, what do you know of your species' history with the Council?" Seoyon frowned. We applied for membership 20 years ago. The council granted us associate status, but not full membership. We've been trying to prove ourselves worthy ever since. That's the official story, Krital agreed. But do you know why the council hesitated to accept humanity fully? Because of the Krell War, because we're too aggressive. Partially true, but not complete. Krital settled himself into a resting position, his crystalline body ringing softly. Let me tell you what I remember of first contact with humanity. I was there, you know, part of the exploration committee that discovered Earth. Seo Yan had never heard this story before. She leaned closer, listening intently. We thought we had found a tragedy, Krital began. A species trapped on a nightmare world. Earth registered as a Class 12 death world on our sensors. Do you know what that means? It means a planet so hostile that establishing even a simple research base would be considered highly dangerous. Most species would die within days of exposure to such an environment. But humans evolved there, Seoyon said. Yes, and that terrified us. Krital's voice held a note of old fear. We watched humans for months before making contact. We saw them survive weather that would kill most species. We saw them fight predators with their bare hands. We saw them laugh in the face of dangers that would send our bravest soldiers fleeing. He paused, as if remembering. When we finally made contact, we offered to save them. We would relocate humanity to a safer world, we said. A paradise compared to Earth. Do you know what your ancestors said? They said no. They said no, Krital confirmed. More than that, they seemed confused by the offer. This is our home, they told us. Why would we leave? We realized then that humans didn't see Earth as a prison. They saw it as normal, as comfortable. Seoyan had heard pieces of this before, but never from someone who had been there. That scared the council. It did. We began studying humanity more carefully. We learned about your history, the wars you fought among yourselves, the way you turned everything into weapons, sticks, stones, chemicals, even atoms themselves, the way you never surrendered, never stopped fighting, no matter the odds. We're survivors, Seoyon said softly. That's what Earth taught us. Survive, adapt, overcome. Yes. But the council saw something different. They saw a species that might eventually turn that survival instinct outward, toward the galaxy. Krital shifted slightly. Then came the Krell War, and our fears seemed confirmed. The Krell attacked us first, Seoyan protested. They did. And humanity's response was devastating. Not just in the military sense, but in how it was perceived. Other species fight wars, yes, but there are rules, unspoken agreements. You target military installations, not civilian infrastructure. You avoid certain tactics considered too cruel. Humans didn't follow those rules, Seoyan said quietly, understanding dawning. No, humans fought to win using every advantage. Psychological warfare that left Krell soldiers too afraid to fight. Guerrilla tactics that made nowhere safe. Economic warfare that collapsed their entire supply chain. Krital's voice held something like awe. In 3 months, humanity reduced the Krell Empire, a power that had conquered 17 systems, to a broken remnant. The Krell homeworld surrendered without a shot fired there because there was nothing left to fight with. And the council decided we were too dangerous to trust. Some did, yes. But I saw something else. Krital turned to look at her directly. I saw that humanity never struck civilian targets unless absolutely necessary. I saw that when the war ended, humans didn't occupy Krell territory. They didn't demand tribute or territory. They simply stopped the threat and went home. Then why keep us at arm's length? Because the Council is afraid of what humanity represents. You're proof that terrible environments create terrible survivors. And the question everyone asks is, When will humanity decide the rest of us are threats that need to be stopped? Seo Yan sat back, processing this. That's why everyone's so scared now. They think humans have decided the galaxy is a threat. Perhaps. Or perhaps... Kretal gestured toward the view screen where Admiral Choi's last message was frozen. Perhaps humanity has found a threat that needs stopping, and they're doing what they've always done. Using overwhelming force to end it quickly. A thought struck Seo Yan. The Xerxes cluster. You said there are research facilities there. What do they research? Ancient technology, primarily. The cluster contains several archaeological sites from the predecessor civilization. The predecessors? Seo Yan had heard of them. A species that had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind ruins and mysterious technology scattered across the galaxy. Yes. Most of their technology is inert now, dead, but occasionally we find active sites. There's one in the Xerxes cluster, an ancient facility buried in an asteroid. We studied it for decades, but couldn't access the interior. Eventually, we declared it dormant and left minimal monitoring in place. Seo Yan's heart began racing. Could that facility have something to do with the silence? I don't see how. It's been inactive for millions of years. But Kretal's voice held uncertainty. Seo Yan pulled up her data tablet and began searching through reports. If there was a connection between the ancient facility and the silence, there had to be evidence somewhere. She found it in a report filed 6 weeks ago by a research team in the Xerxes cluster. They had detected unusual energy readings from the asteroid containing the predecessor facility. The readings lasted for 3 days, and then stopped. The research team had recommended investigation, but their report had been filed away, marked for review at the next quarterly assessment. 3 days of unusual activity, Seo Yan muttered, and 6 weeks ago. That matches the timeline for when the first silence infections appeared in the Outer Rim. She showed Kretal the report. The old Thornash read it carefully, his crystalline features reflecting the screen's light. This could be coincidence, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. Or it could be exactly what the humans think it is. Seo Yan stood up. I need to get this to the council, to Zeloth. She rushed down from the observation gallery to the main floor. The council was still debating whether to comply with the human ultimatum or to stand firm. Seo Yan pushed through the crowd of representatives and their assistants until she reached Zeloth. Council leader, I have information about the Xerxes cluster. Zeloth looked exhausted. His antennae drooped, and his 4 arms hung loosely at his sides. Miss Park, unless this information explains why humans are threatening us, it can wait. It might explain exactly that. Seo Yan showed him her tablet. The ancient predecessor facility in the Xerxes cluster. It showed activity 6 weeks ago, right when the silence first appeared. What if it's not dormant? What if it created the harvesters? Zeloth's eyes widened. He grabbed the tablet, reading quickly. Then he turned to address the council. Representatives, please. I have new information to share. The chamber quieted. Zeloth explained what Seo Yan had discovered. Representatives leaned forward, listening intently. This is speculation, said the Krevtar representative. We have no proof the facility is involved. But the timing matches, argued a Marathi delegate, and humans specifically mentioned the Xerxes cluster. They must know something we don't. Then let them tell us, demanded the Krevtar, instead of issuing ultimatums. As if in response, the communication system activated. Admiral Choi's face appeared on the view screen once more. Council of Species, he began without preamble. You have asked why we're here. You demand explanations. Very well. 3 months ago, the human colony of New Sol went silent. 300,000 souls lived there. When our rescue teams arrived, they found the same thing you've seen on 53 other worlds. Our people standing in the streets, minds gone, bodies functioning but empty. The Admiral's face was hard, but Seo Yan could see pain beneath the stern expression. We lost 300,000 people in a matter of hours. We couldn't save them. We couldn't even understand what happened. All we could do was evacuate the few who hadn't been infected yet and watch our colony die. He paused, seeming to gather himself. Our scientists worked day and night to understand the silence. They traced the infection vector. They studied the harvesters. And they found something. The harvesters aren't natural. They're machines, ancient machines, still following programming set millions of years ago. Zeloth stepped forward. The predecessor facility in the Xerxes cluster. Yes, Admiral Choi confirmed. Your own records show unusual activity from that facility 6 weeks ago. That's when this started. That facility isn't dormant. It's active. It's producing harvesters and spreading them across the galaxy. Every day it operates, more people die. More colonies fall silent. Why didn't you tell us this? Zeloth demanded. Why come here with warships instead of information? We tried to tell you, the Admiral replied, and now anger crept into his voice. We sent a request for assistance 3 weeks ago. We detailed everything we'd learned. We asked if you had any information that could help. We received no response. Seo Yan felt her face flush with shame. The buried message, the bureaucratic failure that had left Earth's cry for help unanswered. That message was mishandled, Zeloth admitted. An error in our administrative systems. We only learned of it today. An error that cost lives, Admiral Choi said coldly. While we waited for a response that never came, 7 more colonies fell to the silence, 15 million more victims. We realized we couldn't wait for the Council to act. We had to stop the source ourselves. And you think you can destroy a predecessor facility? Kretal's voice rang out. Many have tried over the millennia. All have failed. Those installations were built to last forever. Then we'll be the first to succeed, the Admiral replied, because we have to be. That facility is producing weapons that are killing millions. It has to be destroyed. And if that means reducing the entire asteroid to dust, then that's what we'll do. How? Asked Velmon. What weapons do you possess that could accomplish such a thing? Antimatter warheads, enough to crack the asteroid in half and vaporize everything inside it. The council chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Antimatter weapons were known in theory, but few species had ever created them. The energy release was too dangerous, too unpredictable. One miscalculation could cause destruction far beyond the intended target. That's insane, shouted the Krevtar representative. The explosion could destabilize the entire cluster, destroy all 7 stations. Yes, Admiral Choi agreed. That's why we told you to evacuate. We don't want to kill anyone, but we will destroy that facility no matter the cost. Too many have died already. Zeloth raised his arms for silence. When he spoke, his voice was calm but firm. Admiral Choi, humanity has suffered greatly from the silence. We understand your pain and your anger, but you cannot make this decision unilaterally. The Xerxes cluster is council territory. Those stations house 30,000 souls. Then get them out, the Admiral said simply. You have 12 hours. We have a countdown running. Whether those stations are empty or not, we will complete our mission. You would kill 30,000 innocent people to destroy one facility? We would give them 12 hours to evacuate so we can destroy the facility that's killing millions. Admiral Choi leaned forward, his eyes hard. Council leader, I didn't come here to negotiate. I came here to warn you. Clear the Xerxes cluster. We will do what must be done. The transmission ended. Silence filled the chamber. Seo Yan looked around at the representatives. She saw fear on every face, regardless of species. The Velkari, the Thornash, the Marathi, the Krevtar, all of them afraid. But beneath the fear, she saw something else. Realization, understanding. Humans weren't here to conquer or destroy the Council. They were here to end a threat. And they were willing to be seen as monsters to do it. "What do we do?" asked a small voice. One of the younger representatives, from a species Seo Yon didn't recognize. Zeloth stood silent for a long moment. His four arms moved through a series of gestures that Seo Yon knew represented deep thought among the Velkari. Finally, he spoke. "We evacuate, immediately, all 7 stations in the Xerxes cluster. Every person, every piece of critical equipment we can transport in 12 hours. "You're giving in to their demands?" the Krevtar representative snarled. "I'm saving 30,000 lives," Zeloth replied. "And I'm acknowledging something I should have seen earlier. Humanity isn't our enemy. The silence is. And if humans are willing to risk galactic condemnation to stop it, then perhaps they understand the threat better than we do." He turned to his communication officer. "Send out the evacuation order. Every ship we have goes to the Xerxes cluster. We have 12 hours to clear 7 stations. It will be close, but we can do it." Orders flew through the chamber. Representatives contacted their ships, their governments, their people. The great machinery of the council lurched into motion, focused now on saving lives instead of debating politics. Seo Yon found herself assigned to help coordinate the evacuation. She worked alongside Krital and a dozen other assistants, tracking which ships were going where, ensuring that every station was being covered. 10 hours passed in a blur of activity. Reports came in steadily. First station evacuated, second station evacuated, third, fourth, fifth. The 6th station hit problems, a malfunction in their main transport ship. Seo Yon watched the countdown tick down. 11 hours, 40 minutes. They wouldn't make it. Then a new signature appeared on the sensors. A human ship, one of the 17, broke formation and headed for the 6th station. "What are they doing?" Velmon asked. They watched as the human ship docked with the station. 15 minutes later, it undocked again, now carrying the station's remaining population. It had given them transport. Seo Yon felt tears in her eyes. Even now, even while preparing to unleash terrible destruction, humans were saving lives. The 7th and final station completed evacuation with 30 minutes to spare. Every soul in the Xerxes cluster was safe. Admiral Choi appeared on the view screen one final time. "Evacuation confirmed. Council ships, move to minimum safe distance. We're beginning our approach." Zeloth replied. "Admiral, is there no other way? No chance of negotiation?" "The time for negotiation ended when the silence started spreading," the Admiral replied. "Now there's only action, only doing what must be done, no matter the cost." The human fleet moved toward the Xerxes cluster, toward the asteroid containing the ancient facility, toward Annihilation. The Council observation ship held position at what the human fleet had designated as minimum safe distance. Seo Yon stood in the observation deck alongside dozens of Council representatives and military observers. Everyone watched the view screens in tense silence as the 17 human warships approached the Xerxes cluster. The asteroid containing the predecessor facility appeared on the main screen. It was massive, roughly 30 kilometers across, pockmarked with craters and covered in ancient metal structures that had survived millions of years in the void. The facility itself was buried deep inside, its outer shell constructed from materials the Council's best scientists still couldn't fully understand. "They'll never breach it," whispered Krital beside Seo Yon. "We've tried for decades. Cutting lasers, plasma drills, kinetic impactors, nothing even scratched the surface." "Humans don't use the same weapons we do," Seo Yon replied quietly. On the screen, the human fleet split into 3 groups. The largest group, led by Admiral Choi's flagship UES Indomitable, took up position directly in front of the asteroid. The other 2 groups flanked it from above and below, creating a 3-dimensional perimeter. "All ships, this is Admiral Choi," came the transmission. "Target confirmed. Weapons free. Begin bombardment sequence." What happened next made several Council observers gasp. The human ships opened fire simultaneously, but these weren't the clean energy beams or plasma bolts that most species used. These were solid projectiles, launched from electromagnetic rails at a significant fraction of light speed. Hundreds of them, a metal storm that lit up the darkness with kinetic fury. The rounds struck the asteroid like hammer blows. Even from this distance, the impacts were visible as bright flashes, debris fountained into space where each projectile hit. "Kinetic weapons," breathed Velmon. "Primitive, but effective." The bombardment continued for 10 minutes. The human ships poured thousands of rounds into the asteroid, targeting the same areas repeatedly. Slowly, impossibly, craters began to form in the predecessor facility's outer shell. "They're doing it," Seo-Yan whispered. "They're actually damaging it." Then everything changed. The asteroid came alive. Energy readings spiked across all sensors. The ancient facility, dormant for millennia, activated its defense systems. Weapon ports that hadn't opened in millions of years suddenly irised wide. Beams of unknown energy lanced out toward the human fleet. "Evasive maneuvers!" Admiral Choi's voice rang out across the communication channels. The human ships scattered, their engines flaring as they dodged the ancient weapons. One beam caught a destroyer, the UES Defiant, across its port side. The ship's shields flared and failed. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. "Defiant reporting heavy damage," came a calm voice over the channel. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Casualties reported." "Defiant, fall back to secondary position," Admiral Choi ordered. "All ships, continue bombardment. Don't let up." The human fleet regrouped and renewed their attack. The kinetic rounds continued to hammer the asteroid, while ships dodged return fire from the facility's defenses. Then something else emerged from the asteroid. At first, Seo-Yan thought it was debris from the bombardment, but these objects moved with purpose, swarming out from hidden bays in the facility's structure. Thousands of them, each about the size of a human torso. "Harvesters," Kretal said, his voice filled with dread. The machines that carried the silence poured out of the facility like angry insects from a disturbed nest. They were just as hideous in space as they had been in the images from infected colonies. Organic and mechanical components blended together in ways that violated natural law. Writhing tendrils extended from metal cores. Biological matter pulsed around crystalline structures. They moved fast, faster than any ship. "All ships, we have incoming harvesters," Admiral Choi announced. "Point defense systems online. Do not let them board." The space around the human fleet lit up with defensive fire. Lasers, small kinetic rounds, even old-fashioned explosive shells. Anything that could hit the fast-moving harvesters. Many were destroyed, vaporized in brilliant flashes. But there were so many. Too many. The first harvester reached the destroyer UES Soul. It latched onto the hull with its tendrils and began cutting through the armor with tools that glowed with an eerie green light. "Soul reports boarding attempt," came a transmission. Marine teams responding. More harvesters reached the human ships. The UES Indomitable, the cruisers Determination and Resolute, the destroyer Defiant. All of them came under boarding attack. Through the communication channels, Seo-Yan could hear the sounds of combat, gunfire, shouted orders, screams. "This is madness," said the Krevtar representative. "They can't fight an ancient facility and a harvester swarm simultaneously. They should retreat." But the human ships didn't retreat. They held position and continued their bombardment of the asteroid, even as harvesters cut into their hulls. "Marine teams, report status," Admiral Choi commanded. "Indomitable, Deck 9, harvesters contained, 3 casualties. Soul, Decks 4 and 5, fighting in progress, heavy resistance. Resolute, Deck 12, harvesters eliminated, 7 casualties, 4 infected." That last report made everyone in the observation deck go silent. Infected. The silence had come to the human fleet. "Resolute, this is the Admiral." Choi's voice was steady despite the circumstances. "Infected personnel are to be isolated immediately. Full quarantine protocols." "Understood, sir." CO Yan watched the screens in horror. The human ships were being overwhelmed. For every harvester they destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear. Several ships reported multiple boarding attempts. The defensive fire was constant now, a wall of light surrounding the fleet. Then one of the destroyers, the UES Liberty, went dark. All its lights died, its engines cut out. It drifted silently, no longer responding to hails. "Liberty, respond," Admiral Choi commanded. "Liberty, do you read?" Silence answered him. "All ships, Liberty is lost," the Admiral said, his voice heavy. "Assume all crew compromised. Target the Liberty. Don't let the harvesters use it against us." Seo Yan felt sick. The Admiral was ordering his own ship destroyed. Hundreds of crew aboard, and he was condemning them all. But she understood why. If the harvesters controlled that ship, they could use it as a weapon against the rest of the fleet. The UES Seoul turned its weapons on its sister ship. The first shot punched through the Liberty's hull. The second hit its reactor. The ship exploded in a ball of white fire that quickly faded in the vacuum of space. 2 more ships followed the Liberty into silence. The destroyer UES Courage and the cruiser UES Victory both went dark within minutes of each other. Both were destroyed by their fellow ships before the harvesters could use them. The human fleet was down to 14 ships now, and the harvesters kept coming. "They're going to lose," Velmond said quietly. "They can't sustain this." "No," Seo Yan replied. "Look at the asteroid." Despite everything, despite the harvester swarm and the ship losses, the human bombardment had never stopped. The kinetic rounds continued to hammer the ancient facility. And now, finally, visible cracks appeared in the outer shell. "They're almost through," Krital said with wonder in his voice. "They're actually going to breach it." "Admiral, this is Commander Lee aboard the Defiant," a woman's voice came through the channel. "We've successfully cleared our borders, requesting permission to move to assault position." "Negative, Defiant," Admiral Choi replied. "You're too damaged for close approach." "Sir, with respect, we're still operational, and we have the breaching teams ready." There was a pause. Then, "Permission granted. But if your situation deteriorates, you pull back immediately. That's an order, Commander." "Understood, sir. Defiant moving to assault position." The damaged destroyer broke formation and accelerated toward the asteroid. Seo Yan could see the damage it had taken. Whole sections of the hull were torn open. Emergency force fields held atmosphere in, but barely. The Defiant moved into point-blank range with the asteroid and unleashed everything it had. Missile after missile, round after round, all focused on the cracks the fleet had created in the facility's shell. The ancient structure finally gave way. A massive section of the outer shell collapsed inward, revealing the facility's interior. Strange lights flickered in the darkness within. Alien machinery, still operating after millions of years, was finally exposed to space. "Breach confirmed," Commander Lee reported. "We have access to the facility interior." "All ships, concentrate fire on the breach," Admiral Choi ordered. "Pour everything through that opening." The remaining human ships shifted their fire, targeting the exposed interior. Explosions bloomed inside the facility as weapons struck systems never designed to be hit directly. But the harvesters responded immediately. The swarm diverted from attacking the ships and instead poured back into the facility, forming a living shield over the breach. "They're protecting it," Seo Yan realized. "Of course they are," Krital replied. "It's their source, their creator." "Admiral, we can't get effective fire through the harvester screen," reported one of the ships. Admiral Choi was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was grim. "Then we go to Plan B. Prepare the assault teams. We're sending people inside. The council observers looked at each other in shock. He can't be serious, said the Krevtar representative. Sending ground teams into that facility is suicide. The interior will be crawling with harvesters. He's serious, Co Yon said softly. Because someone has to plant the antimatter charges at the facility's core, and the only way to do that is to go in there and do it manually. But that means... It means whoever goes in isn't coming out, Seo Yan finished. It's a one-way mission. On the communication channel, Admiral Choi was speaking to his fleet. All ships, I need volunteers for the assault team. This is not an order. I repeat, this is not an order. I need people willing to enter the facility, reach its core, and plant antimatter charges. You'll have 30 minutes from breach to detonation. Escape will be... unlikely. Xiaoyan expected a long silence. Who would volunteer for certain death? Instead, responses came immediately. Indomitable Marine Platoon volunteering? Sir. Defiant Assault Team ready, sir. Soul Engineering Crew volunteering, sir. Determination Special Forces ready to deploy, sir. More and more voices, each one volunteering to die. Admiral Choi's voice was thick with emotion when he replied. I thank you all. Defiant Assault Team, you have point. Commander Lee will coordinate the insertion. Understood, sir, came the reply. It was a woman's voice, calm and professional. This is Lieutenant Hae-Wan Song, Defiant Assault Team preparing for deployment. We'll get it done, Admiral. I know you will, Lieutenant. The entire galaxy is counting on you. SEO Yan watched as small craft launched from the UES Defiant. Dropships, carrying the assault team toward the breach in the facility, toward almost certain death. Around her, every council observer had gone silent. Even the Krevtar, who had called humans aggressive and dangerous, said nothing. They were all witnessing something they had never seen before, not just courage, but sacrifice. Humans choosing to die so that others, including species that had feared and distrusted them, might live. The dropships approached the breach. Harvesters swarmed around them, trying to stop them. The human ships provided covering fire, destroying harvesters by the hundreds. One dropship was hit and spun out of control. It crashed into the asteroid's surface and went silent, but the other two made it through. They disappeared into the breach, into the ancient facility, into the heart of the silence. Assault team is inside, reported Commander Lee. Godspeed, Lieutenant Song. Copy that, Commander, came Hae-Wan Song's voice, distorted now by interference from the facility's interior. Beginning our run to the core. See you on the other side. Everyone knew what the other side meant. Seo Yan found herself praying, something she hadn't done since childhood, praying for people she'd never met, praying for humans who were walking into death to save a galaxy that had never fully trusted them. The timer began counting down. 30 minutes until detonation. 30 minutes until the annihilation of the facility. 30 minutes until Lieutenant Hae-Wan Song and her team died to save them all. Lieutenant Hae-Wan Song had always known she might die in space. Every soldier accepted that possibility. But she had imagined dying quickly, a hull breach, an explosion, something fast. Not this. Not walking deeper into an alien facility millions of years old, knowing that every step took her farther from any chance of survival. Thermal reading ahead, said Corporal Junseo Park, checking his scanner. Big heat signature. Could be the core. Or could be a harvester nest, replied Private Minji Choi, her rifle held ready. Either way, we keep moving. Hae-Wan's team consisted of 12 Marines from the UES Defiant. They'd started with 20, but the second dropship had been destroyed during the approach. 8 good soldiers gone before they even reached the facility. Now 12 remained, carrying antimatter charges that weighed heavily on their backs. The interior of the facility was like nothing Hae-Wan had ever seen. The walls weren't just metal or stone. They seemed to shift and flow as if they were partly liquid. Lights pulsed through them in patterns that hurt to look at directly. And the air, brought in from their dropship's atmospheric processors, tasted wrong, metallic and bitter. "Movement!" shouted Sergeant Tae-Yang Kim from the rear. "Harvesters, 6 o'clock!" Hae-Won spun. 3 harvesters skittered toward them from a side passage, their tendrils writhing. "Fire!" The Marines opened up with their rifles. The harvesters were tough, absorbing several shots before going down, but they did go down. Small victories. "Keep moving," Hae-Won ordered. "We're on a clock." 28 minutes until detonation. They moved deeper into the facility. The passages grew stranger the farther they went. Sometimes the walls would shift, opening new paths or closing old ones. The team marked their route with chemical trackers, but Hae-Won suspected it wouldn't matter. They weren't coming back this way. "Lieutenant, I'm picking up something weird," said Junseo, staring at his scanner. "The thermal signature isn't just hot, it's growing, like it's getting bigger." "The facility knows we're here," said Private Yoon-ji Lee. "It's waking up." "Then we'd better hurry," Hae-Won replied. They encountered more harvesters. Groups of them, blocking passages. The Marines fought their way through with rifle fire and grenades. 2 Marines fell. Private Sung-Ho Kim took a harvester tendril through the chest, and Corporal Hae-Jin Yoon was grabbed by 3 harvesters at once and pulled into the darkness before anyone could save her. 10 Marines remained. "There," Junseo pointed ahead. "The passage opens into a chamber. Big one, that's gotta be it." They emerged into a massive space. The chamber was spherical, easily 100 meters across. And at its center, suspended in mid-air by forces Hae-Won couldn't see, was the core. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a crystalline sphere that pulsed with inner light, surrounded by rings of alien metal that rotated slowly. Energy arced between the rings, creating a web of power, and everywhere, crawling over the sphere and rings, were harvesters. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Holy hell," breathed Minji. "That's what we came to destroy," Hae-Won said. "Spread out. We need to get charges placed around the perimeter before they realize we're here." Too late. The harvesters turned as one, their sensory organs focusing on the Marines. Then they attacked. The chamber erupted into chaos. Harvesters poured down from the core like a waterfall of nightmares. The Marines formed a defensive circle and opened fire. Rifles barked continuously. Grenades exploded. The air filled with the smell of ozone and burning organic matter. "We can't hold them," shouted Tae-Yang. "There's too many." "We don't need to hold them," Hae-Won replied, checking her antimatter charge. "We just need to place the charges. Junseo, Minji with me. Everyone else cover us." She ran toward the core with 2 Marines following. The rest of the team laid down suppressing fire, creating a corridor of death that the harvesters had to cross to reach them. It worked, but barely. Private Ji-won Han fell, overwhelmed by harvesters. Private Soo-jin Park went down seconds later. 8 Marines left. Hae-Won reached a position near the core and activated her antimatter charge. The device hummed to life, its timer syncing with the fleet's master countdown. She set it against the chamber wall and armed it. "First charge placed," she called out. "Moving to position 2. Junseo sprinted along the chamber's curve, dodging harvesters. He placed his charge and activated it. "Second charge set." Minji moved to place the 3rd charge, but a harvester caught her. Its tendril wrapped around her leg and pulled. She fell hard, her charge sliding away across the floor. "Minji!" Hae-Won fired at the harvester, hitting it repeatedly until it released the private. But more were coming. "I got it!" Sergeant Tae-Yang grabbed the loose charge and ran for position 3. A harvester intercepted him. He fired his rifle one-handed while activating the charge with the other. The charge armed, just as the harvester's tendril pierced his chest. He fell, but the charge stayed in place. "Third charge set," someone called out. Heywan realized it was Corporal Daejung Shin confirming Tae Yang's placement even as their sergeant died. 6 Marines remained. "Positions 4 through 6, move now," Heywan ordered. The remaining Marines spread out, each running toward their designated position. Harvesters swarmed them. Private Young-hee Kang made it to position 4 and set her charge before being dragged away, screaming. Corporal Daejung reached position 5 but was overwhelmed before he could arm his charge. Private Insu Bae grabbed the unset charge and finished arming it, then set his own at position 6. "Charges 4 through 6 set," Insu reported. 4 Marines left, and 6 more charges to place. Heywan did the math. They weren't all going to make it. Hell, they probably wouldn't place all 12 charges. But maybe they could place enough. The antimatter explosions might trigger a chain reaction that would destroy the core anyway. "Lieutenant," Jun Seo's voice came through her helmet comm. "My scanner's showing something. The core. It's not just a power source. It's controlling the harvesters. Everything connects to it." Heywan looked at the crystalline sphere. Jun Seo was right. She could see it now. Thin tendrils of energy extending from the core to every harvester in the chamber, and probably to every harvester in the galaxy. "If we destroy the core, do the harvesters shut down?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe. The connection is definitely there." A plan formed in Heywan's mind. Risky, but everything about this mission was risky. "New plan," she announced. "Forget the perimeter placement. We concentrate all remaining charges directly on the core. Hit it hard enough, fast enough, maybe we can overload it." "That means getting right up next to it," Minji said. "Through all those harvesters." "Yeah, I know." 15 minutes until detonation. "I'll go first," Insu volunteered. "Clear a path." Before Heywan could object, the private charged forward, firing his rifle on full automatic. He cut through the harvesters like a man possessed, creating a momentary gap in their defenses. "Go! Go!" Heywan shouted. She and the remaining Marines sprinted after Insu. They made it halfway to the core before the harvesters closed the gap. Insu went down fighting, taking at least a dozen harvesters with him. 3 Marines left. Junseo reached the core first. He slammed his charge against the crystalline surface and armed it. "Charge 7 set, in direct contact with core." Minji placed hers on the opposite side. "Charge 8 set." Heywan moved to place hers, but something grabbed her from behind. A harvester, bigger than the others, pulled her away from the core. She struggled, but its grip was too strong. Junseo shot it, forcing it to release her. But more harvesters were coming. Too many. "Lieutenant, go!" Junseo shouted. "Place your charge. We'll hold them." "Junseo, that's an order, Lieutenant, from a corporal who's about to die anyway." Heywan ran. Behind her, she heard Junseo and Minji firing continuously. She reached the core and placed her final charge. Armed it. 9 charges total. Not the full 12, but it would have to be enough. She turned back. Junseo was down. Minji was still fighting. But there were at least 20 harvesters surrounding her. "Minji, fall back!" Heywan shouted. "No point, Lieutenant," Minji replied, her voice strangely calm. "They got me. I can feel it. The silence. It's in my head." Heywan's blood went cold. The infection. Minji had been exposed. "How long?" she asked. "Minutes, maybe. My thoughts are getting fuzzy." Minji kept firing even as she spoke. "Lieutenant, get out of here. Someone should survive this. Minji, please, don't let me become one of those things. Don't let the silence take me." Heywan understood. She raised her rifle, tears streaming down her face, and fired a single shot. Minji fell. 1 Marine left. Heywan Song stood alone in the chamber, surrounded by harvesters, deep inside an alien facility, with 9 antimatter charges counting down to detonation. 12 minutes until detonation. She should run, should try to get back to the dropship, even though she knew she'd never make it in time, should at least die trying to escape. But she didn't run. She walked to the core and sat down against it, feeling the strange warmth radiating through her armor. She checked her rifle. Half a magazine left. "This is Lieutenant HFY Song," she said into her comm. "Charges are placed. 9 total, all in direct contact with the core. Detonation will proceed as planned." "Lieutenant Song, this is Admiral Choi." The Admiral's voice was tight with emotion. "Your team?" "Gone, sir. All of them. They died well." "As will you, Lieutenant. The galaxy won't forget this. Won't forget any of you." "Thank you, sir." HFY paused. "For New Soul, Admiral." "For everyone the silence took." "For everyone the silence took," the Admiral repeated. "And for everyone it won't take because of what you've done today." The harvesters were advancing again, more cautiously now. They seemed to sense the danger, but were compelled to defend their core. HFY started talking. She didn't know if anyone was listening, but she needed to speak, needed to fill the silence before the silence took her. "This is what I remember about New Soul," she said. "Cherry trees. We had planted them along every major street. They bloomed once a year, and the whole colony would celebrate. Pink petals everywhere, like snow but beautiful." She fired at a harvester that got too close. It fell. "My sister lived there. Ji-Yan. She was a teacher. Kindergarten. She loved those kids so much. Used to send me pictures of their drawings." Another harvester. Another shot. "When the silence came, Ji-Yan was one of the first infected. I saw her on the rescue footage, standing in her classroom, surrounded by empty-eyed children. All of them gone. All of them stolen. 10 minutes until detonation. I couldn't save her. Couldn't save any of them. But maybe I can stop it from happening again. Maybe that's enough." Back on the observation ship, Seo-Yeon listened to every word. Tears ran down her face. Around her, council representatives stood in stunned silence, hearing a human soldier's final moments. "She doesn't sound angry," Krital said softly. "I thought she would be angry." "She's not fighting for revenge," Seo-Yeon replied. "She's fighting so others don't have to lose their sisters." On the channel, HFY continued speaking. She talked about her childhood on Earth, about her decision to join the military, about the first time she saw space and thought it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. 5 minutes until detonation. "I wish I had more time," HFY said. "There's so much I wanted to do, places I wanted to see. But if my death means the silence ends here, then I can accept that. I can—" She stopped mid-sentence. Movement on her scanner. Big movement. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildup in the core. It's doing something, reacting to the charges maybe." "Lieutenant, the charges aren't set to detonate for another 4 minutes. If the core is reacting now, it might blow early," HFY finished. "Understood, sir. Then I guess I don't have to wait as long as I thought." She stood up, facing the advancing harvesters, raised her rifle. "For New Soul," she said. "For Ji-Yeon. For everyone." The core's energy buildup reached critical levels. Light poured from it, so bright that HFY had to close her eyes. She felt heat, intense and growing, felt the harvesters around her stopping as if confused by what was happening to their creator. "Admiral Choi, this is Song. Tell my parents I love them. Tell them I—" The transmission cut to static. On every view screen in the observation ship, every sensor display, the readings spiked impossibly high. Then everything went white. The antimatter charges detonated. The facility core exploded. The entire asteroid came apart like a flower blooming, petals of rock and metal expanding outward in a sphere of destruction. The explosion was visible from the observation ship despite the distance. A new sun birthed in the darkness of space, burning briefly but brilliantly. The shockwave hit the human fleet, pushing ships backward. The observation ship rocked despite being at minimum safe distance. When the light faded, the asteroid was gone. The facility was gone. The core was gone. and Lieutenant Hei Wan's song was gone. Silence filled every communication channel. The human fleet held position, not moving, as if in tribute to the fallen. Then Admiral Choi's voice came through, heavy with grief and pride. "All ships, they did it. The facility is destroyed. The core is eliminated." Someone on the observation ship started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. Council representatives from 47 different species stood and applauded soldiers they would never meet, honored humans who had died to save them all. Seo Yan clapped until her hands hurt, tears streaming down her face. On the sensors, something remarkable appeared. Across the Xerxes cluster, in every corner of the system, harvesters were going dark, shutting down, dying. Junseo had been right. The core controlled them all, and with the core destroyed, the harvesters lost their purpose, lost their life. "We're getting reports from infected colonies," announced a council communication officer. "The harvesters there are shutting down too, all of them, everywhere." The silence was ending. 437 humans had died to make it happen. 3 ships destroyed. 1 assault team that walked into certain death. But they had won. They had achieved complete dangerous annihilation, not of the Council, not of any species, but of the threat that endangered them all. And the galaxy would never forget it. 3 days after the destruction of the predecessor facility, the Council chamber on Terminus 7 was fuller than it had been in years. Every species had sent representatives. Every delegate wanted to be present for what was about to happen. Seo Yan stood in the human observation gallery again, but this time she wasn't alone. Earth had sent a full diplomatic team as soon as they heard what happened. Ambassador Chen stood beside her, along with 6 other diplomats. But all eyes were on the council floor, where Admiral Minjun Choi stood in full military dress uniform. It was the first time a human military officer had ever been invited to address the full Galactic Council. Zeloth stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms spread in a gesture of welcome. "Admiral Choi, the Council thanks you for accepting our invitation. We know you have duties with your fleet." "The fleet can wait," Admiral Choi replied. His voice was tired. Seo Yan could see the weight of the past 3 days on his face. "What you have to say seemed important enough to postpone repairs." "It is." Zeloth gestured to the assembled representatives. "Admiral, 3 days ago, humanity arrived at our borders. We were afraid. We thought you came to attack us, to destroy us. We prepared for war." "I know," the Admiral said quietly. "I could see your defense fleet on our sensors. I knew what you thought we were." "We were wrong," Zeloth continued. "Catastrophically wrong. Humanity didn't come to destroy the Council. You came to destroy a threat that was killing millions, a threat we had failed to recognize, a threat we had accidentally created by activating an ancient facility we didn't understand." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Many species had lost people to the silence. The pain was still fresh. "We owe you an apology," Zeloth said. "Multiple apologies. First, for failing to respond to your request for help 3 weeks ago. That failure cost lives. Second, for assuming the worst of your intentions when you arrived. And third, for fearing you when we should have trusted you." Admiral Choi was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his words were measured. "Council leader, humanity doesn't need apologies. We came here to do a job. We did it. That's all." "No," Kretal's voice rang out. The old Thornash stepped forward. "That's not all, Admiral. You lost 437 souls doing that job. 3 complete ship crews, 1 entire assault team. You paid a price in blood to save species that had done nothing to help you. That deserves more than a simple acknowledgement." "They were soldiers," the Admiral replied. "They knew the risks. They volunteered." "Exactly," said Velmon, floating forward in his water-filled containment suit. "They volunteered to die. For us, for species they'd never met, for colonies they'd never visited. Why?" The question hung in the air. Every representative leaned forward, wanting to hear the answer. Admiral Choi looked around the chamber. Seo Yon could see him choosing his words carefully. "Because someone had to," he finally said. The silence was spreading. Every day it operated, more people died. More families were destroyed. We lost New Seoul. 300,000 people gone in hours. My wife's brother lived there. Velmon, your species has a saying, don't you? No current too strong to stand against together. We have a similar one on Earth. All it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The silence was evil. We could do something. So we did. Even knowing it would cost human lives? Asked the Krevtar representative, the same one who had called humans aggressive days earlier. Especially knowing that, the Admiral replied, because the alternative was letting millions more die. And humanity learned long ago that some things are worth dying for. Protecting the innocent is one of them. You speak of protecting the innocent, said a small delegate from a species Seoyon had learned was called the Pesh. But the galaxy sees humanity as warriors, as dangerous. We've heard stories of the Krell War, of human brutality. For the first time, the Admiral smiled. It was a sad smile. Yes, we fought the Krell, and we were brutal. We used every advantage we had. We waged total war. Do you know why? The Pesh delegate shook her head. Because the Krell attacked our colonies without warning, without mercy. They killed human civilians, children, elderly, everyone. They thought we were weak, thought we would surrender quickly. The Admiral's voice hardened. We showed them what happens when you threaten humanity's families. We destroyed their ability to wage war so thoroughly that they would never threaten anyone again. Was it brutal? Yes. Was it necessary? Also yes. And now you've brought that same brutality to the silence, said the Krevtar. Now we've brought that same determination, the Admiral corrected. The silence threatened everyone, human and non-human alike. We didn't see species when we looked at the infected colonies. We saw victims, people who needed help, so we helped the only way we knew how. Zeloth raised one of his arms. Admiral, the Council has debated for 3 days about how to respond to what humanity has done. Some argued that we should be grateful but cautious. Others suggested that we should be afraid of a species capable of such destruction. But I believe we've been asking the wrong question. What's the right question? The Admiral asked. Not what is humanity capable of, but what will humanity do with that capability? Zeloth stepped closer. Admiral, in the past 3 days we've analyzed everything that happened. Your fleet could have destroyed the facility from a distance. You could have fired your antimatter weapons from safe positions and avoided all casualties. Why didn't you? The Admiral met Zeloth's eyes. Because we weren't sure it would work. The facility was ancient, built with technology we don't understand. A distant bombardment might have triggered defensive systems we couldn't predict, might have caused an uncontrolled reaction that destroyed the entire cluster, including the 7 stations that were still being evacuated when we arrived. So you risked your people's lives to protect ours, Velmon said softly. We risked our people's lives to protect everyone, the Admiral replied. That's what soldiers do, what humanity does. We don't see species when we see a threat. We see people who need protecting. Silence filled the chamber. Seo Yon felt tears forming again. She'd cried more in the past 3 days than in the past 3 years. Zeloth turned to address the full council. Representatives, I call for a vote. The question before us is simple. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities that entails? The Krevtar representative stood. Everyone expected him to object. He'd been humanity's loudest critic. Instead, he said, I vote yes. Humanity has proven itself worthy, more than worthy. One by one, every representative voted. Every single one voted yes. 47 species, unanimous. Admiral Choi, Zeloth announced formally, On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity full membership. We ask that you join us not as subjects, not as mercenaries, but as equals, as partners in building a safer galaxy." The Admiral stood silent for a long moment. Seo-Yan held her breath. This was everything Earth's diplomatic corps had worked toward for 20 years. "I appreciate the offer, Council Leader," the Admiral finally said, "but I can't accept on behalf of Earth. I'm a military officer, not a diplomat. This decision needs to be made by our civilian government." "Of course," Zeloth said. "We understand. But will you give them our message? Will you tell them that the Council no longer fears humanity? That we want you as allies?" "I will. But I need to ask you something first." The Admiral's expression grew serious. "If we join, will you trust us? Even when our methods seem harsh? Even when we do things that frighten you?" Zeloth's antennae moved in a pattern Seo-Yan had learned meant thoughtful consideration. "Admiral, 3 days ago your fleet arrived at our borders. We froze in fear. We thought you came to destroy us. We prepared for war. We were wrong about everything." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We won't make that mistake again. The next time humanity arrives with dangerous weapons, with grim determination, with willingness to sacrifice everything, we'll remember. We'll remember that when humanity brings annihilation, it's not for us. It's for whatever threatens us, and we'll be grateful." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then I'll recommend that Earth accept your offer. But I have one condition." "Name it." "The 437 humans who died stopping the silence. I want them honored. I want the galaxy to remember what they did. Not for glory, but so their families know their sacrifice mattered." "Already done," Kretal said. He activated a holographic display. An image appeared. A space station under construction at the exact coordinates where the predecessor facility had been. "We're building a memorial station. It will serve as a research outpost studying the remains of the facility. But its primary purpose is to honor those who fell. We're calling it Song Station, after Lieutenant Hae-Wan Song." Seo-Yan saw the Admiral's jaw tighten. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Every human who died will have their name inscribed on the station's memorial wall," Kretal continued. "And every species in the Council is contributing resources to its construction. It will be a symbol of what can be accomplished when the galaxy works together." "Thank you," the Admiral said, his voice rough with emotion. That means more than you know." The formal session ended shortly after. Representatives began filing out, many stopping to speak with Admiral Choi personally. Seo-Yan watched as the Krevtar representative actually bowed to the Admiral, a gesture of deep respect among his species. Later, Seo-Yan found herself in a quiet observation lounge with Kretal. The old Thornash had become something like a mentor to her over the past few days. "Do you think they'll accept?" she asked. "Earth, I mean. Will they join the Council?" "I believe so," Kretal replied. "But more importantly, I believe the relationship has already changed. Humanity proved something the Council needed to see." "What's that?" "That strength and compassion aren't opposites. That a species can be dangerous and still choose to protect rather than dominate. That the capacity for violence doesn't equal the desire for it." Kretal's voice held a note of wonder. "For 20 years, the Council saw humanity's strength and assumed you would eventually use it against us. We were wrong. You used it for us." "We used it for everyone," Seo-Yan corrected gently. "Humans included. The silence didn't care about species. Neither did we." "Exactly. And that's what the galaxy needed to understand." 3 months later, Seo-Yan stood in the observation lounge again, but this time she was on Song Station. The construction had proceeded quickly, with every Council species contributing workers and materials. It was still incomplete, but the memorial wall was finished. She walked along it slowly, reading names. 437 of them, each one etched into polished metal. She found the Defiance assault team near the center. Lieutenant Haiwan Song, Sergeant Taeyang Kim, Corporal Jun Seo Park, Private Minji Choi, Private Insu Bei, and more. 12 names, 12 people who had walked into certain death to save millions. "Are you Seo Yeon Park?" She turned to find a young Velkari standing behind her, a juvenile barely old enough to be away from family supervision. "I am," Seo Yeon replied. "My name is Zelrin. I'm from one of the colonies that was infected by the Silence. We were evacuated before we lost our minds. Because of the humans." The young Velkari's antennae drooped. "I wanted to see the memorial, to understand what happened." "And do you understand?" "I think so. The humans saved us. They destroyed the thing that was hurting people, and they died doing it." "Yes. My teacher says humans are the bravest species in the galaxy. Is that true?" Seo Yeon considered the question. She thought about Lieutenant Song's final transmission, about a woman facing death with calmness and purpose, about soldiers who volunteered to die so others might live. "I think humans would say they weren't being brave," she finally answered. "They'd say they were just doing what needed to be done, that someone had to stop the Silence and they were capable, so they did it. But that's what makes them brave, isn't it?" Zelrin replied. "Not thinking about whether they're brave or scared, just thinking about what needs to be done and doing it." Seo Yeon smiled. "You're very wise for someone so young. My teacher says the humans taught us something important. That real strength isn't about being scary or dangerous. It's about choosing to protect people, even when it's hard, even when it costs everything." They stood together in silence, looking at the names on the wall. Around them, workers from a dozen different species continued building the station, a monument to sacrifice, a reminder of what the galaxy had almost lost, and a symbol of what had been gained. A week later, Earth's government officially accepted the Council's offer. Humanity became the 48th member species of the Galactic Council. The news was celebrated across the galaxy, but nowhere more than on Song Station. Seo Yeon was there when the first research teams arrived to study the Silence. Scientists from 20 species working together to understand the plague and develop immunity, so it could never happen again. She was there when the first families of the fallen came to pay their respects, watched them touch names on the memorial wall, saw them cry and remember. She was there when Admiral Choi visited for the station's official dedication ceremony. He stood before the memorial wall for an hour, not speaking, just remembering. And she was there 6 months after the battle when the station detected something remarkable. Victims of the Silence, previously thought to be lost forever, began showing signs of recovery. With the harvesters destroyed and the core eliminated, some of the infected were slowly regaining their minds. Not all of them. Not most. But some. The first was a young Marathi girl from a colony in the Outer Rim. She woke up one morning and asked where her mother was. Then a Krevtar teacher. Then a Pesh merchant. Dozens. Then hundreds. The research teams worked frantically to understand why. What they discovered gave hope. The Silence hadn't destroyed the victims' minds, just suppressed them. With the control signal from the core gone, some victims' brains were healing themselves. Seo Yeon was in the station's communications center when the message came through from New Seoul. They'd found 3,000 survivors showing signs of recovery, 3,000 out of 300,000, but still, 3,000 minds returning from the darkness. One of them was a woman named Park Ji-yeon, a kindergarten teacher, Lieutenant Song's sister. Seo Yeon cried when she heard, cried for joy, for the first time in months. She immediately sent the message to Admiral Choi. His response came back within an hour. HFY would be happy. She died protecting her sister without knowing she might be saved. That's humanity in a nutshell. We fight for each other, not because we know we'll win, but because we refuse to give up. Standing in Song Station, looking out at the stars, Seo-yeon reflected on everything that had happened. The council had frozen in fear when humanity arrived. They'd prepared for war, for destruction, for invasion. They'd been so focused on humanity's capacity for annihilation that they'd missed the point entirely. Yes, humanity came with dangerous weapons. Yes, they were willing to use overwhelming force. Yes, they were terrifying in their efficiency. But that wasn't what made them special. What made them special was that they chose to use all that danger, all that capacity for destruction, to protect rather than conquer, to save rather than subjugate, to sacrifice rather than demand sacrifice from others. The galaxy had feared humanity would bring annihilation, and they were right. But the annihilation humanity brought wasn't for the innocent. It was for the threats that endangered them, for the plagues that killed without mercy, for the ancient evils that lurked in forgotten corners of space. The Council had learned something precious. When humanity arrived with grim determination and terrible weapons, it wasn't something to fear. It was something to be grateful for, because it meant that somewhere, somehow, there was a threat that needed to be stopped, and humanity, brave, stubborn, compassionate humanity, would stop it, no matter the cost. Seo-yeon looked at the memorial wall one more time. 437 names. 437 reasons why the galaxy was safer. 437 proofs that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their tactics or their death world origins. It was their willingness to stand between innocent people and danger, no matter who those people were. That was the lesson of Song Station. That was what humanity had taught the galaxy, and the galaxy would never forget it. Outside the station, ships from 48 species traveled peacefully through space. Humans and non-humans working together, trading, exploring, building a better future. All of it possible because humanity had arrived with one goal: complete dangerous annihilation, not of people, but of the things that threatened people. And that made all the difference.